Hello again, and welcome back to the confirmation vlog. Coming to you this time, once again, from Hong Kong Airport, although I have yet to find those moving walkways that featured so heavily last time I was here. So I'm on my way to Australia again, and I've just got a couple of hours here before my next flight, so I thought it would be a good time to update the vlog. It's been an interesting day. And I'm feeling a little second hand, so apologies if some of this seems a little incoherent. The day started very interestingly indeed. I've been trying to set up a new backup to take with me for the laptop and cleared off the disk and everything, and then everything was running a bit slowly, so I thought, I better give it a bit of a clean while I'm doing some other stuff. And then it said, the disk needs to be repaired. I thought, oh. And so I ran Disk Utility, and it said those words you really don't want to hear before you're going away for 2 months to a place where you don't have access to your backups, which was, the disk cannot be repaired, you should back it up immediately because everything may fail. So I've got a laptop with me, I have a backup that's in London, and I'm currently really just praying that I can get a backup happening when I get there and that the whole thing hasn't failed in the interim. Please cross fingers for me. So there is a possibility that I'm shooting this and I'm going to mention stuff that I actually cannot provide footage of because they're on the backup in London and the disk has failed and I can't access them. But I'm hoping that's not the case, and I'll try and put in as much as I can to illustrate what I'm talking about. So what's been going on? Okay, well let's go backwards. Spent this past week at Snape Maltings with Bastard Assignments, where we were doing a residency for Snape's Festival of New. So we had a week there working on new work, polishing older work, and then we did a gig on the Saturday night, which I have to say really went very, very well. We're all super pleased with it. Apparently there's been some great feedback to Snape about us, and we're absolutely delighted. And that performance was the site then of the premiere of the vocal piece that I've been talking about the last few weeks and going back to February. So I spent a lot of time this week working on that and just trying to get it into shape. And not very much has changed really, but I feel it's a lot more solid now, and just trying to get the light right. So pretty much everything's the same. It's just things have cemented properly. There have been some structural changes in that the opening now, before it was sort of a very quiet opening, sort of starting small and building up. It now sort of starts with a blast of a whole bunch of techniques that come in over the course of the piece, just for a few seconds, and then it goes back to the quieter stuff and starts developing that material. I've reached a point where there's a couple of movement-based sections that are pretty much solid. They're pretty much in there every time, in much the same form every time. The end is fairly solid, and I think what I'm heading towards with this, I tried to do a score of it, but basically it was nearly impossible to work from the score to learn it. And so I'm kind of taking a cue from Aide Memoir and what happened there, which was that I wrote out the narration and then I winged it, and the more I performed it, just making it up as I went along, the more it sort of settled into these patterns of things that I wanted to say, things that I preferred not to, that didn't come out quite right, and it's gradually sort of pretty much the same every time now, and I think this is going to be much the same. And then once I feel it's solid, then I'll find a way to notate it. I think this is a much better approach than sort of trying to be a bit abstract and then attempting to learn something that's really quite physical from a piece of paper. So we sort of collectively made a decision that I was going to do this with a handheld mic. I'd originally planned to do it with a mic on a stand, so I'd have my hands free, and somebody suggested a handheld, and I was a bit freaked out, frankly, because my microphone technique could do with work. But while I was really quite uncomfortable with that to start with, as the week progressed, I got much more comfortable with working with a handheld mic, and things improved, and it made me a lot more aware of what I was doing with the rest of me, and particularly the hand that wasn't holding the mic, and I started to recognize some almost involuntary gestures that go on. So for example, with the sort of slurping sounds I make, sort of, I almost always have sort of something like this going on with my left hand without really even realizing it, which my mother tells me dates back to childhood. So I decided to kind of play on that and really sort of ramp it up and make it part of the piece, not just something that happens, but an actual gesture, and to play with that a bit. And I'm quite pleased with where that went, and there might be some more of that as the whole thing develops. Anyway, I think the performance came out well. There was certainly, it went through several iterations during the week. I was just sort of performing, trying to do it every day, just to get to grips with it and sort of stew on lessons learned, that kind of thing. And so I have some video footage of those. Maybe. But it was quite good to see how that progressed. Adding the lighting in really made a huge difference, really thinking about costume as well. We ended up doing quite a few costume changes across the gig, and I think I had about 3 different outfits in the end, which was luxurious. But it all kind of fed into how it ended up, really. The audience reactions seemed enthusiastic. I tend to space out a little bit and don't really remember very much when I've been performing, so it's a bit of a blur, but the boys told me there was whooping at the end, which is nice. And it felt strong, it felt like it was good, so yeah, that was nice. Didn't get too many comments from the audience afterwards, but that was mostly because we finished with Cake Piece, and yeah, for some reason people really want to talk about that piece every time we do it. It seems to make an impression. And I was very pleased with the way we staged it, which was sort of a drawing on the learning experience of doing it at, in the Thames Tunnel shaft at Rotherhithe, where I'd felt uncomfortable with the setup and people misread my relationship to the cake and thought I was a small child screaming for the cake or something like that, and yeah, just didn't really get that I was screaming on behalf of the cake. So for this one we had the lighting squarely on the cake. I couldn't be seen. Ed was sort of in half light cutting it, and I think it worked really, really well. We got a lot of great responses to that. As always, I was a little disappointed that we couldn't feed the audience the cake, because that is actually in the score. But the insurance, obviously being a homemade cake, you can't guarantee you won't poison anyone. But I made the cakes in the kitchen of the artist's accommodation, so I had to actually take my oven thermometer and a whole bunch of kit for that, and yeah, do a test cake earlier. But it all turned out really well. I was very, very, very pleased with that, and as did seem to be the people who ate it. So we were able to give it to staff, so that was very nice. Thank them for all their hard work, because it was a great festival. It was part of Snape Maltings Festival of New, which is a new thing they're trying out, which featured a whole bunch of people who are doing residencies there, showing what they've been up to. So it's really, really varied program, but a great 2 days of gigs. It was really great fun. So what else? Britten Variations. Very exciting. I had my first rehearsal with my cellist, Amy Jolly. She very kindly came down to London, and I sort of attacked the Britten and pulled out some bits of notation that we could work with, which sort of ended up being loops and tiny fragments that I stretched out, sort of working with some of the drawing elements, and yeah, just to play around with them and to play around with sort of tone colour and that kind of thing. Yeah, I think we ended up with some really good material. I'm really happy with it, the stuff I can work with. One thing that seems to be quite settled though is that the video part that I had planned is looking like very much it's going to be an audio part in the main, mostly because of logistics, because I've had trouble filming at high quality across multiple days and making it feel consistent. My video software is a little limited, really. I've only got Final Cut Express, and Pro is a little out of my budget for now. So there's sort of limited things that I can do with that, and it's all very slow, and I can't film in Australia probably, and I'd have to take the green screen with me without being sure I could actually put it up. And then it started to be that the original idea had been to kind of shoot a section every day and to really talk about the development of the piece. And then if I was only filming in the UK, I'd be cutting that short. And at any rate, if I felt the UK stuff wasn't usable, then I was only filming in Australia, then there'd only be a section of it. So what I'm going to do, I think, is to switch to audio and work with that in a more abstract kind of way. But the video part, I'm thinking there'll still be some video in it, but it might be just one movement at the end, perhaps sort of like a video coda. We tested it out on a laptop screen, and we're both in agreement that while we both really like the idea, it's really only going to work in a very small venue. So it might be an optional video coda. Yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done there, but there's material to work with now, and I'm feeling much more confident of where it's going to go. Yeah, so I've got that to work on in Australia, and I'm hoping I might be able to find somewhere to perform the vocal piece, which actually has a name now. I mean, it's a dot drip line line piece, so it's got its number, which is 8918, catchy, and the subtitle is Edge, because I felt that it was about sort of physical edges and the edges of the voice. Yeah, it just seemed appropriate because it wasn't really about falling anymore. Yeah, so I think that's about it really. I'm sure there's more I probably should have thought of, but like I say, feeling a bit second-hand after the flight. I've got another 9 hours to go. Fortunately, these ones aren't delayed this time. Yeah, so I'm going to be in Australia for 2 months, and yeah, I'm not quite sure how much work I'll get done. If you've been following these for a while, you may recall that the 2 vlogs I shot in Australia last time were basically like, nope, I haven't done anything, and these may be the same. But we'll see what happens. I'm hoping to sort of keep plugging away at stuff. I do need to do some work on the Britten. And yeah, we'll just see where it ends up. Anyway, I will see you next in Sydney. Take care till then. Thanks for watching. As always, if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I will endeavour to answer them quickly depending on my parents' internet connection. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye!